Hi, I'm Pattu from FreeFinCal. Let's talk about where to invest until Parak Parik FlexiCap Fund reopens. As everyone would be aware, other than existing SIPs, the Parak Parik FlexiCap Fund closed for subscriptions from February 1st, 2022 to avoid breaching the overseas investment limit set by RBI. This limit only uh, applies the breach of this limit only applies for funds that are directly investing in foreign equity. Fund of funds investing in foreign ETFs have a separate limit, and those can continue accepting new investments. Now, when the breach was imminent and they closed the subscriptions, the mutual fund industry said, we have talked to RBI, we have talked to the government, and they were going to get it increased in a day or two and so on. But now it has been a month, so there has been no news on this matter. So we have to move on, and we can't keep holding on money for them to open up the fund. Now, before we begin, some considerations. Now, even if RBI does increase the limit, for overseas investment, and the fund reopens, because of additional inflows, then at some point in time in the future, maybe a few months or maybe a year or so from now, again there may be a temporary closure. Again, then they may go and request the government for a limit increase and so on. Because this, like I said in the previous video about why the rupee fluctuates with respect to the dollar, the more the money goes out of India, it will try to weaken the rupee. So RBI is going to be very careful about not allowing too much of leeway for mutual funds to accept money. So this is always going to be a problem, and this is something that Parak Parik AMC will have to think about, because the FlexiCap fund is their flagship fund, and they don't want their main profit source to be the income from their main fund to be disrupted for too long, or the stoppage of subscription cannot continue for too long. They don't want that, so they may want to rethink their foreign investment strategy. So now this is only for people who don't have SIPs and are investing in the FlexiCap fund. Should you wait for the fund to reopen? No. If you have money, you should invest, and there is no doubt about it. Just that your investment should be with respect to an asset allocation. You should not disrupt that asset allocation just because you can't invest in Parak Parik FlexiCap. So, but don't worry too much about this investment in international stocks. For a few months, if you don't invest in it, it doesn't make a great difference. Now, the FlexiCap fund is primarily an Indian equity fund, which invests a portion of its portfolio in international stocks. So if you want to replace it with something, it should also be the replacement should also be an Indian equity fund. You can't say I until last month I invested in Parak Parik FlexiCap. From now on I will choose a fund that invests in an overseas ETF. That kind of reasoning is wrong. And if the only reason you are investing in Parak Parik FlexiCap is because of their foreign equity, then it is not a sound strategy, in my opinion. Of course, one of the biggest USPs of such funds is the favorable taxation, automatic tax-free asset rebalancing between Indian equity and foreign equity that occurs. They are all great features that are there, but that all depends upon how much RBI increases the limits, whether they increase it or so on. So let's see. Once something is known about this matter, we can take a call on this. Now, for most people, the FlexiCap fund, the Parak Parik FlexiCap fund is not going to be their only fund, right? So if you are holding other funds, just go and invest in there. I mean, there's no big deal. Nothing is going to happen if you don't have international equity exposure for a few months. It's not a big earth-shattering experience. If for some reason the Parak Parik fund was the only fund you held, then you can consider adding a Nifty or Sensex index fund, or a reasonably consistent aggressive hybrid fund. It's not hard to pick one. You can choose one using our monthly mutual fund screeners, or you can choose the hand-picked list of mutual funds, the plumb line that we publish every quarter. Now, please recognize that the PPFC has a very unique investment strategy. It can actually act like an aggressive hybrid fund. It can invest 35% in bonds. So you can't easily replace it with something else. So it's better not to not to try and do that. I would suggest not to do that. Now, as I have mentioned in a few videos ago, I have invested in UTI low volatility. Someone was asking me that they have not got the allotment. I've got the allotment for the investment yesterday. So you should have also got it by now. So I'll talk about more about that. So yeah, like I said, if you have other funds, go ahead and invest there. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about not having international equity exposure for a few months with all these Fed rate hikes that are going to be expected in the US equity market. It could be a blessing in disguise that we are not investing there. So don't worry too much about it. Now, there can be a situation where RBI says we will only allow fund of funds investing in international ETFs, and we will not increase the limit for equity funds investing in international equity, because when the fund of funds are allowed, there's a little more extra tax that benefit that the government will get. That's a possibility. I'm not saying it will happen. It's a possibility. If that happens, we will worry about it. But in my opinion, don't add too many asset types into your portfolio, because the diversification will become a nightmare to manage it. The diversification and the associated rebalancing, it will become a nightmare. Many people don't worry about all that. They just buy and let it grow like weeds, but that's a different matter. For a responsible investor, it will become a nightmare. It's best not to do it. Now, another question that was asked was, even if the fund reopens, should we invest in the Parak Parekh FlexiCap fund because its AUM has gone up? This is the issue indeed, because so far since launch, the fund has not experienced a downturn. It has not, the law of averages has not struck for that fund. Maybe it might strike and the performance may go down, but that's a problem. We can get to it when that happens. Now, for me, the Parak Parekh FlexiCap in my retirement portfolio is about 58%. So that's the highest among the three mutual funds I have. Of course, there's a stock portfolio for about 24-25%. That's a separate holding. HDFC hybrid equity is 26% and quantum long-term equity is 16%. So the entire equity corpus is among the mutual fund corpus is in these three funds. I was getting greedy and chasing momentum in Parak Parekh FlexiCap, ignoring concentration risk. So for me, the investment closure is a very good development. And at the same time, the UTI low volatility NFO came along, so I just put money in there because I like low volatility. But in my mind, I see the UTI low volatility index not as a replacement for the Parak Parekh FlexiCap, but as a replacement for quantum long-term equity. I will gradually try to get rid of quantum long-term equity in subsequent rebalances and so on. So until Parak Parekh FlexiCap reopens, I will be investing in HDFC hybrid equity and UTI low volatility. Even if it does reopen, there's not much I can invest there because I have already enough concentration there. So that's what I'm going to do. But please take decisions as per your own circumstances.